just like it.
He's a really young guy.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
He's a lot of time behind this. They've recently been putting him, he used to be one of those guys who would show up with a camera by himself.
He's been on TV. Me? Okay, let's call this meeting to order, please. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag evening and welcome. We have a few things to get through this evening. First is approval of tonight's agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That carries. I need a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes for October 19th.
Moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion of those minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That carries. Thank you. The next issue is Patron Comments, and I do have a card here, so I need to read through this. It says that every regularly scheduled board meeting, citizens may make a statement or address the board concerning issues pertaining to the Rockwood School District. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. In practice, if a large group is represented by a spokesperson or persons, we allow that group 5 minutes to make their presentation. To address the board, complete a blue comment card, looks like these. It's prior to the start of the board meeting and give it to a communications department staff member. Citizens will be called to the lectern by the board president to make comments. The board values and appreciates you taking the time to provide your comments. The general practice of the board is not to respond to your comments at this time, except to ask for clarification if needed. If appropriate, the district will provide a written response within a reasonable period of time. Please note that matters related to employee negotiations, legal issues, real estate, personnel, and student matters are reserved for board discussions during the closed session. If a number of people are speaking on the same issue, we ask that you please try not to simply repeat the same comments as the previous speakers. So having dutifully read that, I would like to call Barb Ryering up. Welcome, Barb.
I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Knost and everyone here and distinguished guest. I'm Barb Ryering with the American Heart Association. And I am very proud and honored to partner with your schools for programs called Jump Rope for Heart, Hoops for Heart, and other heart-related activities and awareness. Most of you probably know heart disease is the #1 killer. Stroke is #5, and we've come a long way. It used to be #3. We're hoping we won't be #1 killer in a few years because we've made so many strides. Also, due to the help of school districts like Rockwood. Our mission is to teach these children, school-age children, to take care of their own hearts. Because if they do, they can extend their life by as long as 5 years. Exercise a little bit more, make some good food choices, and don't smoke. Sounds easy, right? But it's not. But we're trying to get our word out. You have some fabulous physical education teachers and nurses here that do a wonderful program called Jump Rope for Heart, as I said earlier. It's over 40 years old. This school district has been amazing. They've had a rich tradition with the American Heart Association in supporting us. So last summer, I met with Dr. Knost and Dr. Fine, leader of the physical education department, and I kind of tell them what the district raised, and I said, oh gosh, in 2016, You were the #2 district, and you raised $141, and thank you so much. And Dr. Knos goes, well, how come we're not #1? So he puts forth a challenge. So Rockwood's been #2 or #3 in the state for donations raised. Fort Zumwalt, Dr. DeBray's district, has been #1 for the past 4 years. Dr. Marty in Parkway, 3, 4 in the state. Awesome. Wonderful supporters. So Dr. Knos says, I'm going to challenge these 3 top superintendents, Dr. DeBray, Dr. Marty in Parkway, and say, whoever is the #1 district treats that superintendent and their wife to dinner. So he puts out the challenge. He puts it out to the principals and the administrators in the district. Everybody's on board. It's really cool. Well, I have to tell you, the 3 districts, because of your challenge, raised $59,990 more than they did the previous year. So that means the 3 districts not only raised what they did, which was fabulous, and I'll tell you that in a minute, but $60,000 more due to your challenge. Also, the Rockwood School District was the #1 district in the state of Missouri for donations raised. So I would like to present this to Dr. Knos. I also want to share with you that the schools also get PE equipment for doing this program because we want to keep your kids active and healthy, so we give back. The Rockwood schools earned $17,200 in PE equipment this past year, which was just fabulous. Nobody does that. One more thing. Because of this challenge and because of everything that you all did, you raised $187,001. That's amazing. All of you.
Go around front and get a picture there. Thank you for your kind words and for all you're doing for the organization. We appreciate it. The next item is superintendent and board comments, so I will turn that over to Dr. Knost. I'll take a look.
Good evening. Barb humbly brags on our district and the other districts she works with, but we really know that if it wasn't for her efforts and her work, the time that she takes to come meet with superintendents and talk about, and all of our PE teachers know Barb, and that's just our district we're talking about. It's all the other districts too. So thank you, because it starts with you. It starts with you. It's easy for me to throw out a challenge, which, by the way, those guys have yet to make good on that. But Janet has now officially scheduled it for a couple weeks. It's a couple weeks. We're doing. They asked to do lunch. I think they're taking me to Yaya's. So that's pretty good. But thank you, Barb. Thank you very much. Yes. Just a few neat things going on in the district, and some of these things have been well covered in the media lately. But Eureka and Summit students, as you've heard already, enrolled in the new math class known as Geometry and Construction. And they have started constructing the tiny houses, which will be used in geometry and construction paired math and construction teachers to educate students about the concepts behind construction in the classroom before putting them to work using the tools of the construction trade. Eureka teacher Dave Lukey says the class utilizes terminology students would hear on a construction work site, it's professional terminology, just to be clear. And it will help prepare students for careers in construction management, architecture, and engineering. The goal is for the tiny houses to be complete by the end of the school year. Really a cool thing. If you have an opportunity to come out and just observe the classes, I encourage you to do it, because it's the energy the students have and the teachers, and it's just very, very exciting. And if that's the way They taught geometry when I was a kid. I would have been much more of a fan. Very, very practical. It's a cool thing. Good news for the 18th year, the Rockwood School District has received the Meritorious Budget Award from the Association of School Business Officials International. 18th year. The award program promotes and recognizes excellence in school budget presentation and enhances school business officials' skills in developing, analyzing, and presenting a school system budget. So congrats to Paul and his department for that recognition this year. The Rockwood Summit chemistry students are converting, these are biochemists, converting restaurant grease into biodiesel. You've seen that on the news. I don't know how many times we've talked about this, but it never gets old talking about it. But that biodiesel fuel they create is now fueling Rockwood school buses. And soon they will convert cafeteria grease from Washington University into fuel, which will be sold back to the university to operate catering trucks on the campus. That's a grant that we secured with Washington University. It all takes place in the Monsanto Education Center for Sustainable Solutions, which is a small building located behind Summit High School. The students and the teacher, Darren Peters, refer to it as the Bio Shed. But it's an impressive thing. Many of us were there just last week to see the kids. You know, Darren's there, he's in the background, but the kids, you know, this bus pulls up and they're filling the tank and the processor in the back, and then they roll this tank out and they're putting this in. You know, you're really taking a picture of a kid putting a gas nozzle in a bus, but then you realize you can smell the French fries, and you realize that this is biofuel that's fueling this bus that was made by our students, and it's just a phenomenal thing. So we're going to keep talking that one, because that is it started as the Organic Chemistry Club, and now we're pulling it in as a curricular piece, and it's cross-curricular, even beyond the science department. So it's going to continue growing and developing. We're even looking for ways that maybe other schools in our district can engage in that. And a website that helps families discover schools and neighborhoods recently revealed its top public high schools in Missouri, and all 4 Rockwood schools made the list, according to niche.com. Lafayette ranked 3rd in the state, Marquette ranked 5th, Eureka ranked 7th, and Summit ranked 20th. We, there's all kinds of those rankings out there, and you hear from us in the Newsweek things, and there's reasons to applaud those rankings, and then there's also reasons where we can say, you know, it's not the most reliable thing. But I think it's important to note that no matter what those rankings are, Rockwood is always in the middle of that conversation, and that's on the national level, which is a pretty cool thing. So it's fun to talk about it. May have saw this on the news. Stanton Elementary is educating 13 sets of twins this school year. 13 sets of twins. And before I knew that, it's kind of funny. It was right when we were coming up to this being presented from our communications department from their perspective. But I had a joke going with Christy Starnes, the principal, because I was feeling like I was seeing double when I was visiting classes, because you'd be talking to kids and you'd see another one over here identical. I mean, most of them are identical. 13 in one building. A few weeks ago, channels 5, 4, 2, and KMOX Radio turned out to document the duplicity. Stanton has a total of 460 students. The 26 twins account for nearly 6% of the student population there. Kind of a cool thing. And finally tonight, we believe Rockwood is one of the reasons companies like Amazon should consider the St. Louis area when deciding where to locate their facilities. And I threw our hat in the ring, per a suggestion by Alex Fees, as part of the Amazon appeal by the St. Louis County Economic Development Partnership. So I think we're going to show you that.
Hi, my name is Eric Knost, and I'm the superintendent for the Rockwood School District. I'm a lifelong resident in the St. Louis area and a 30-year veteran educator. To our business partners at Amazon, if you choose to locate your facility in the St. Louis region, here's what you can expect when it comes to education. In Rockwood, we have over 21,000 students in 33 school buildings covering 150 square miles in West St. Louis County. We have great business partnerships and our communities are involved in the life of our schools. We focus heavily on STEM education, experiential, hands-on, real-time learning in an attempt to graduate our kids prepared to succeed in the 21st century. Kids graduate college and career ready with an average ACT score of 24.2. Our 4 high schools offer 31 advanced placement courses, and we've recently developed an early college partnership where students can graduate with both a high school diploma and an associate's degree. Our Rockwood students are taught to think, troubleshoot, ask questions, and find relevant answers in this information age. Amazon, we know you'll do your homework. If you want a good example of education in the St. Louis region, check out the Rockwood School District, rsdmo.org, or you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. We look forward to being your business partner.
I had a student in one of our high schools in their journalism class call me to do an interview. His first question was, "So do you think they'll really come?" Well, yes. But I think what's been cool about it is the exposure that we've I think it did a lot better than we thought. But between my own pushing it out in my social media and the district together, I mean, hundreds of thousands, viewed that. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. And who knows? Hopefully it did get the attention of Amazon, and we'll see. That's all I have tonight.
Great, thanks. Any other board members have comments? All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda items. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted. So moved. A motion and a second. Any discussion of the consent agenda items tonight? All right, in that case, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That passes. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda items. The first one is American Education Week Proclamation. I need a motion to approve the proclamation of November 2017 as the Rockwood School District's annual observance of the National Education Association's American Education Week. Okay. I have a motion and a second. I think Ms. Baker is going to join us. Welcome, Laura. Good to see you.
I wanted to thank you for your support in recognizing our quality public schools through American Education Week.
Let over a little bit. Just grab.
Public schools are the cornerstone of our communities. We welcome students of all backgrounds, abilities, incomes, and each of us plays a role in ensuring our schools are open to all. So again, thank you, directors on our Board of Education, Dr. Knost, Rockwood administration, Rockwood teachers, our special school district partners, our central office departments, all of our education support professionals, Rockwood families, our community, for the impact you have on ensuring our public schools are here for each and every student, no matter the circumstance. Everyone is welcome and all deserve the support, tools, and time to learn. So together in Rockwood, we are showing the excellence of public education. All of us, each of us, for all of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think there is a proclamation, and Director Romberg is going to read that for us.
American Education Week Proclamation. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality, and whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they substitute educators, custodians, nurses, teachers, bus drivers, or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools encourage community, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders, and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now therefore, we, the members of the Rockwood School District Board of Education, do hereby proclaim November 13th through 17th, 2017, as the 96th annual observance of the National Education Association's American Education Week.
Any discussion or questions about this proclamation? All right, the motion is to approve the proclamation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That passes. Thank you. The next item is informational, and I think we have a a committee that's going to come up and join us. Welcome.
Good evening. We get the pleasure of presenting on Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. And I have lots of friends that are going to join us soon, so we thought instead of lining up our chairs across the front, we would just rotate in and out. So first of all, I just wanted to remind you about our process of Comprehensive School Improvement. As you know, this is the state's process for reviewing schools, the accountability system for accreditation in the state of Missouri. But obviously here in Rockwood, it means so much more than that to us. It really is our process for continuous improvement. It's our process to continually evaluate our core values and our goals to make sure that we're providing the very best for students in Rockwood. So while the state uses it as their accountability tool, we really use it as our foundation for the work that we do here for continually evaluating our systems and our programs to provide the best for our students and families. So the program that we're going to review for you tonight, remember, is on a 5-year cycle. This Comprehensive School Improvement Program was developed in 2013 and 14 through a committee process in which these goals were set. So each year we come to you and we present updates, but each year we're also continually revising and reworking some of those strategies and action steps because obviously we'll cross some things off the list that we will meet those goals, and then we will continually revise that. So we are due to do another update, a 5-year cycle update in 18-19 to have the new plan ready to go for the 19-20 school year. So tonight we're going to just give you some updates on the first 4 areas of focus. And I'm going to let Shelley Willott start.
So in terms of student learning, we're of course always looking at our student performance data on state and national assessments, but we're really trying to get more than that overall picture. And as we're bringing that data to buildings, we're trying to couple that with some more specific data so that we can address individual student needs and plan instruction from that. Those tests, of course, give us overall ideas about where our students are performing, and that's nice to be able to give to our buildings, but it doesn't necessarily inform that everyday instruction, so we couple that with more specific data that we can pull from some of the assessments that we give in the district, and that just allows us to go a little bit deeper and have different conversations. One of the things that we're really trying to dig into this year is really focusing on that super subgroup achievement and what we can do to improve that. So we had found out that a couple of buildings were starting in this work, so we decided to take this district-wide, and our data team is going to support us pulling together data to identify students who could be taking more rigorous coursework but aren't necessarily involved in it, and then we're going to invite those students to take part in that coursework so that we can get them enrolled in upper level classes. We don't always identify those students, so that data will be really helpful for us to push those students to do what they're really capable of doing. So we're excited about that work. We're also going to need to investigate and train our teachers for sure on how to scaffold and support those students so that as they're taking on that rigorous coursework, we can keep them there and support them in that endeavor. And then, of course, working on overall academic supports for our kids across the board in those super subgroups and really digging into that data and finding out specifically what their needs are.
That's it. All right, so next we have Jane Brown is going to come up and talk about kindergarten readiness. I guess I'm the moderator.
She's the moderator. Hello, good evening. So yeah, partway through this strategic plan, I came to this position, so I took over the baton, and we have 3 areas that we have been focusing on for kindergarten readiness. So we start with our most itty-bitty and supporting our families with our Parents as Teachers program, and that is really a family approach. I know we've talked about that program before, and we have been tracking our numbers to see if those are increasing or not. So I did write down a few 5-year averages, even though I don't have that on the slide, that I think are interesting, especially as we're at the end of our CSIP process, that I wanted to share with you. So the 5-year average for families being served, so that's just a family count, is 1,246 families served each year on average in the last 5 years during this CSIP. That's a lot of people that we're touching. The 5-year average for the children, so that's a different kind of count, that have been served is 1,599, so obviously more children within those families. Visits that we go on to homes, 5,089 average per year. These are big numbers that we're touching a lot of people early on. And then the average screenings, and we have basically a 0 through age 3 screening, developmental screening, and then a kindergarten readiness screening. And so on average each year, we screen 2,372 kids from birth to age 5. So I think those numbers are important. We do track those. We do look at our averages. We look at each year and see how we're doing. In addition, our early childhood curriculum, that's a huge way that we have really stepped forward in advancing our readiness for our kindergartners, our preschoolers going into kindergarten. We have established essential standards that we would like all of our students to be able to leave our preschool program and to be able to know, understand, and do, mostly do, just like we do in K through 12 programming and curriculum. Of course, we are focusing on the social emotional needs, and that social and character development, so important to success throughout life, but school readiness for when they get into kindergarten. We've had great collaboration in writing that curriculum to make sure we're aligning with our K through 5 programming so that what we're doing in preschool leads our children right into what they're going to be doing in kindergarten. And then finally, another area of focus that we have put a lot of attention to, even though we do not have yet, that would be my dream, we do not have yet free preschool for all children. We're doing what we can with our piece of the world in that, and we have a significant number of kids that we do a sliding scale reduced tuition for. And so we're tracking that. Currently we have went from 29 within the 5 years per year students that we had reduced tuition. We're currently at 45, and that's to the tune of between $75,000 and $80,000 that we're providing free tuition to students who may not otherwise have an opportunity to be in preschool. And so those are the 3 biggest areas that we are attacking to be able to prepare the kids that are in Rockwood to be successful when they get into kindergarten and all the way through to graduate, to have a life where they can thrive. Any questions? No? You're always welcome to come visit. Thanks for visiting today.
I make a quick comment on your part.
Yes.
I think what you just said was very informative, but I think another piece that's important to know is that the kids still, in the majority of it, think they're learning all of these things while they're playing, and that's the best part because it's a perfect combination. So kudos to you all in the curriculum because it's just, it's a really nice transition. It's great.
And it's a great feeling to know that you understand that as a board member, that Dr. Knos and Lisa understand that, because play is the work that the children should be doing at that age. That is their work. And just like you plan for your work each day, our children sit down and make a play plan each day to outline, to think about what they're going to do, what their pretend roles are going to be, how they're going to work with their friends. And so it's very structured play, but it is still play. They think they're playing. Yeah. Thank you.
And purposeful.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, next, Dr. Harris and Dr. Cobb are going to come up and talk to us about RTI.
He's not.
Strike?
Good
He's
evening.
got your back.
Actually, I'm really excited to talk about RTI. It's something that I feel passionate about, and I think we've come a long way in our district. It's really, there we go, thank you. The work of, the collaborative work of our curriculum department and Dr. Harris, Dr. Counts, we've met a lot about how can we meet the needs of all students, and I think we've come a long way. And we constantly have this conversation every week about what can we do for all kids. And this year, we're continuing to focus on ELA, math, and social emotional learning. We're still focused on that effective core instruction for all students, and we're really narrowing it down to that building level and that teacher level. That's a major focus for us this year. One thing I want to point out is we've changed a little bit on how we've brought that support to our teachers. One example that I have up there is this is the first time that I can remember in Rockwood, and I started here 21 years ago, where we have all K-5 teachers get together twice a year. So, for example, 5th grade will get together for a half of a day in the first semester and then a half of a day in the second semester. And the purpose of that is to provide Tier 1 support, also Tier 2 support. In addition to that, is to allow those teachers to collaborate and talk about best practices. And so far, we have met with 5th grade and 4th grade, and we're continuing to provide feedback and survey data through Glenn Hancock to make sure that we are targeting the needs of all of those teachers and what their students need. So really excited about that, and we'll continue to focus on that provided by their feedback. In addition to, Dr. Harris will talk about the social emotional learning. Obviously, social emotional is a big topic, and I think that we're really doing an excellent job with responding to those needs. Those needs change, and as they change, we're making sure that we're there for our teachers and our students. So Dr. Harris is going to come up and talk about the social emotional learning piece after that. So, any question?
Dave, two questions. Why are you concentrating on math instead of all subjects? And what does SEL stand for?
Social emotional learning is SEL. I'm sorry, I should have said that. And math is a new curriculum for elementary this year, and just we want to make sure that because it's part of our professional learning this year, we want to make sure that effective core instruction is solid, because I think with that effective core instruction, then we'll have fewer kids that are struggling in Tier 2 and Tier 3. So that's our focus.
You're not saying that you don't have RTI in other schools?
No, not at all. That was just our primary focus. In fact, we have a number of our teacher teams and our principals have other student or other staff that come out and talk in other curricular areas as well.
Have any results to give us, like Jane did?
Do I have results? Not yet.
Yeah, okay. Thought I'd ask.
So I've been with you when you've gone to schools to tour, and you're always seeking out teachers, asking them, do you feel like we're giving you support? Do you feel like you're being helped? And that always impresses me, but what would you say the average teacher would say in our district? That they feel like they're being supported, and they feel like, the math initiatives and like we're supporting them? I mean, is that what you're hearing in our elementary schools?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I in fact, tomorrow morning I have a meeting all morning with a 3rd grade team. It's for 2 hours to talk about that level of support. So the support is there. I think when it comes down to is when you have teachers that really want what's best for kids, when they need answers, they will do whatever it takes. And so they pull in, and with the help of the curriculum department, myself, social emotional learning, Terry's, the people that he works with, it's all hands on deck. So I think the support is there. I know the support is there. It's just sometimes the questions aren't easy to answer, and but the dialogue is really where it starts, and the dialogue is certainly there.
Our next area is highly effective workforce, which is a fancy name for human resources. But we have 3 objectives that we work on through the CSIP process. Recruiting and hiring, I think it's just really interesting to share that we had a diversity job fair last year as a result of our CSIP process and our subcommittee. We get together and we brainstorm how we could find new opportunities to recruit diverse candidates. So we had our first annual in like 15 years, because we did it 15 years ago, diversity job fair, which was outstanding. It was, for any of you that were there, I know a lot of my colleagues were there, it was a wonderful turnout. It was a wonderful event, and I think we really had an opportunity to showcase the Rockwood School District, which sometimes it's an area of struggle, is to attract diverse candidates. Sometimes it's diversity, sometimes it's geography, sometimes it's not knowing about Rockwood. We are the furthest West County school district, and so it was really a great job fair, a great opportunity for us to showcase the Rockwood School District. And mark your calendar, because it is set for February 21st, 2018 at Rockwood South Middle School, but you'll get more information on that. Always, the teacher data is always interesting. We hired 108 teachers You can see the number of administrators we hire. That is a lot of hiring relative to our counterpart school districts, but we're also a large school district that has opportunity. So if we move on to retention, that's really one of the keystones of our highly effective workforce piece. We work hard to make the salary, benefits, working conditions to be desirable for staff. Once they come, they want to stay, which that's what we find. Once you come to the Rockwood School District, because it is an outstanding place to work with wonderful leadership, a supportive environment, competitive benefit and salary package, we do retain our staff, but we work all the time to have those benefit pieces along with a robust professional learning plan that would encourage lifelong learning. And then our last objective is highly qualified staff. And again, we are very lucky that we have outstanding staff. All of our teachers are certified in the area of which they're teaching, which, believe it or not, is not true of other school districts in Missouri, because sometimes of where they're located. But Rockwood School District does have a highly qualified staff, and kind of a new, I'll entice you for maybe planning for the future, we are beginning a Grow Your Own program. That isn't what we're calling it. I think the committee decided to call it Coming Home or Homecoming or something like that, but it's a Grow Your Own, where we're going to identify those hard to fill areas, whether it's a bus driver, a bus mechanic, those are two of the hard to fill areas that we're working on, or a chemistry teacher. We are developing a way to encourage current Rockwood students to go into the field of education, go to a trade school, learn how to become a bus mechanic. We'll help support them in that process, and then eventually hire them back into our workforce. He said, how do you encourage that? Zumwalt has a highly evolved program that includes tuition. They pay some of the tuition for the students. We're in the baby steps right now, so of course that would be a budget impact. We're not there yet. What we're really looking to do is to identify those hard to fill areas, identify those students that are right now, that are juniors and seniors, that are here in the Rockwood School District, and find ways to support them throughout their career in education, if they're going to be a teacher, or a trade school where they would become a mechanic, and find opportunities for them in their time now, and then to come back in Rockwood.
Shadowing people in those areas so that they would see the potential that it could lead for them as a career.
Yeah, and that is a great point. Thank you, because we do have that in place with career shadowing with the PI department and Kim Litzau. We have that piece in place. We want to take it a step further and really encourage graduates to come back. I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of graduates that come back to the Rockwood School District. So we have our Grow Your Own program. It just is a graduate that wants to come back. So we're formalizing it.
Katie, do you know how Rockwood compares to Parkway or Wentzville or somewhere in reference to diversity?
That's a great question. We get together once a month as human resource colleagues throughout the area, and it's always a topic of conversation. So I know that the Parkway School District had already contacted me and said, hey, we love your diversity job fair. What do you think about joining us with a diversity job fair? So I think we really are similar. It's the same struggle across the county.
The attrition rate is 4.9 and 5.9 compared to other comparable districts. Do you have that?
That's interesting too, because when I was preparing for this and planning, and I have a 5-year study of why people leave, and of course the vast majority is retirement, so that's a good thing. For instance, last year we had just in the teachers alone, we had 5 that relocated out of state, 4 stayed home with children, 5 accepted another position, and 51 retired. So how does that compare? I think that it depends on the year, because there are circumstances that would create a higher or lower rate. But I think that we retain our staff. So
What I've seen, this is the district people want to go teach in. The ones that I've worked with are administrators. That's where they want to go.
Well, what should be indicative of that is when you go to a job fair at a university, the Rockwood job fair table is down the hall and around the corner. Now, one of it is because we have opportunity, but it also is a great place to work, and people know that.
Hello. Under the finance section of the CSIP plan, there's really three core areas that are focused on as objectives that really help support the educational and staffing needs of the district. The first one is a facilities plan. The district, much like the CSIP plan, has a facility plan that typically spans 5 years. And as we're rolling off the current facilities plan and some of the items that were addressed in bond issue 2015, we're now revising the plan to incorporate some of the items that were part of the 2017 bond issue. And in that respect, Chris Fan, Director of Facilities, has solicited input from building administrators regarding facility needs, received feedback from them, and during the month of October has actually been going to each of the facilities to kind of review the needs. We'll look at them, prioritize them, and then make that part of the facility plan. So the facility plan is currently in the year of update, and it'll be completed during this school year. The second component is a balanced budget. And as you know, through previous discussions, the district adopted a balanced budget for the current school year. And here shortly in the next month or two, our finance department will also bring you a balanced budget for the 18-19 school year. So things are progressing as scheduled on a finance side of things in budgetary concerns, and fund balances are really at our desired target level as we move forward and as identified by board policy. And then the third component is really the technology aspect of it. There's also a 3-year technology plan that is up for revision as well. Deb Kettering, Director of Technology, is in the middle of revising that plan, which incorporates a lot of the new things coming in within the technology world, the one-to-one expansion. And in addition to that, a long-term funding plan has been put in place through the 2017 bond issue, of which there's a 4-year commitment of $3 million a year for technology expansion. So that summarizes what's in the CSIP plan in regards to the finance aspect of things. Any questions?
Can you or Debbie tell us how the one-on-one expansion, who's got it and who doesn't yet?
You want to do it? You want to come up or you want me to do it? Yeah. So currently all middle school students are one-to-one, so 6, 7, and 8, and our 9th graders, and a certain portion of our 10th graders from last year. We kind of introduced it to a smaller portion of our 9th grade class, and they kept them. And so we're in the process. We're working through some logistics of really the process of etching the computers is kind of arduous and kind of difficult. We're trying to figure out how to do that, but we're actually in good shape to advance our rollout a little quicker. And if you think about it, because the kids keep them, we're actually very close to having all of our high schools one-to-one. In some regard, they are one-to-one because we have the student-to-computer ratio is one-to-one, but they aren't necessarily assigned to students. We have the capability of, in January, going ahead and filling out all of our 10th grade students. And then likewise, if you think about it, then as that advances going into next year, that would only be one class in the high schools that didn't have it, because we'd give it to the 9th graders next year, 10th graders would have it, juniors would have it. So we'd like to advance that to go ahead and issue them to all of the seniors next year. So again, the logistics of that, though, is the ability to actually do the etching, which we feel is important, because I mean that's a lot of how many laptops do we have in our system? Chromebooks. So we're just trying to figure out how to get that done. We really don't want to distribute those laptops, and to some degree, because some of them are already issued in the buildings, they're just not issued to students. So we don't want to take them back while they're being utilized, and the ability to get that done like over the winter holidays is really almost impossible. So we're looking at different options, and I asked Deb to see if even outsourcing would maybe be an option there where we wouldn't have to spend a lot of money. But that's the goal, and that's what we're trying to tackle at this time.
Happens to,
My junior son thanks you.
what happens to the Chromebooks when they graduate? Or, what happens to the Chromebooks when the student graduates? Have an option of purchasing it? Okay.
I think that maybe at some point down the road when we're obsoleting them, maybe that would become something to discuss. But right now, it's more valuable to just to recycle. That's the wrong word, not recycle, but reuse. Because as Deb said, that's how we're pushing down into the elementary schools and building up that ratio as well.
I was going to say, if you give them to juniors next year, you won't have to worry about the high school after that because they'll be seniors. Then you can push it down into the elementary.
Right.
I guess you have to do a 6th grade every year then, don't you? Yes. But you can push it on down. Is it going to be exactly the same type of computer for elementary?
They are. As far as right now, the focus in the elementary is the ratio, not so much the computer being checked out by the student. But we're still discussing that in the upper grades that we'll probably eventually do that, at least for 5th grade, and maybe even consider 4th. But especially the primary, we could potentially. We've explored different devices. We've explored some tablets and various things with the primary grade. So we're still in that learning mode for the younger grades.
Is there any other school in the state of Missouri our size that's doing anything like this? Our size district?
Similar, yeah. There's we locally some of the private schools are again not necessarily if you're talking about size of the district, maybe size of some of the buildings. Melville School District is fully 1-to-1. Pattonville. When I came back as superintendent, one of the first things I asked our technology department was, what's our ratio? And the difference is we had a really good ratio of computers to students. I mean, I think at the time you all told me it was about 2-to-1 district-wide, which is much greater than a lot of districts. We just didn't have the 1-to-1 concept implemented where kids were actually using the devices. And our families, I appreciate Laura Lee's feedback, but our families just love it, especially our middle school students. I've heard nothing but positive feedback from our families.
Our 3rd year on the rollout or 2nd? It's got to be the 3rd year, isn't it?
It's yeah.
Good. Not just pretty good, it's excellent.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Sharing with the counts that I don't think I'm going to use all 40 of my minutes. So, all right. So I have area 4, which is school climate. If you take a look at the screen, the goal is to create a safe and caring learning environment that includes a positive school culture and positive collaboration and communication throughout the school and community. So when I thought about this goal or think about this goal, I think about a quote that Maya Angelou said a while ago, that people would forget what you said, people would forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And so my area is really focused on what is that feeling experience we want all our students to have in the Rockwood School District. So as I talk about the work that we're doing, hopefully you can keep that quote in mind, because we're doing a wonderful job with the curriculum and the academics pieces. We're doing a wonderful job in terms of financing and hiring a wonderful staff. So my area is really focusing on kids' experience outside of the academic pieces. This year we created a new series. You guys all have a poster that was just passed out to you. You can take a look at the dates. We'd love to have you present at any of those meetings. It's a reoccurring series, so if you go to one in each area, it's the same moving forward. But the 4 areas that we're focusing on are social emotional learning, restorative practices, trauma-informed care, and self-care for teachers. Social emotional learning, we're using the CASU definition. CASU is the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning, based out of Chicago, has been around for 25 years, leading organization as it relates to social emotional learning. Social emotional learning for us focuses on self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, decision-making skills, and social awareness. So those are the 5 competencies. We have partnered with a professor from Washington University to conduct that series around social emotional learning. So it's a wonderful, fantastic, research-backed professional development that our teachers learn about the 5 competencies, as well as strategies that they can incorporate into their classrooms. Restorative practices is a big movement that's going around, it really in the Midwest, but restorative practices has been around in New York and California areas for years. It's just becoming a big thing in the Midwest. I think most of the restorative practice language has come from the Ferguson Commission. Right after the governor created that commission, you can read that, and part of it asks school districts to take a look at restorative practices. So I know that these meetings are taped, and I think that it's important for me to say that restorative practices is not the absence of discipline. And I think that's really important, because I think sometimes people connect restorative practices with the absence of suspending kids or discipline, and that's not really what restorative practices are. Restorative practices at the core are about building healthy relationships with students and repairing harm when harm is done, right? So even when we have to suspend a kid, what strategies, what things do we have in place to allow that kid to feel a part of our community when they come back to school, right? And how do we create systems to help the kid repair that harm when that harm was done, right? So the example that I often give, if you call the teacher a bad name and we suspend the kid, well, that student is going to come back to that classroom. That teacher may still have that hurt and that pain there, and that student may still feel ashamed for what he or she did. So what steps do we need to put in place to make sure both the teacher is okay as well as the student is okay? That's what restorative practices are all about, and we do that training. I actually conduct that training. So restorative practices. I'm sure there may be questions later about that. Trauma-informed care. So we know research says that 1 in 4 students are coming to school impacted by trauma, directly or indirectly. Those students are sitting in our classroom, and it's really hard for kids to access all their full capacity of intellect when they're dealing with whatever traumatic experiences that they may have had. And as educators, we have to be aware of that. We can't just push through the geometry curriculum or whatever thing that we're teaching without addressing that student hurt and pain. And our teachers are asking for that. Our teachers are saying that we know that we have kids who are traumatized, and what things do we need to put in place to make sure they're okay. So 1 in 4 kids are said, based on the research, says that are reporting to have experienced a traumatic experience. 1 in 5 students are said to have some type of mental health challenges. So these are some of the challenges that we're facing, and we can't just continue to hire people. So at some point we're going to have to build capacity, and that's what the trauma-informed care piece is. So when I thought about this whole Thrive series, those 3 pieces were the pieces that we came together with. I had an opportunity to talk to some of my colleagues in the back and just thinking about another area. We wanted a 4th area. And the big piece was the teacher self-care. Our teachers are working extremely hard. doing a wonderful job. It's not by coincidence that the 4 high schools are ranked. And we know that. NPR did a report not too long ago, August of 2017, reporting that 46% of teachers across the nation are experiencing some type of level of burnout or stress or anxiety. In fact, the article said teachers are highly stressed and why we should all be concerned. The article goes on to say that, which is really simple, teachers who are stressed out is a direct impact on a level of stress with our students. And so what do we do as a district to make sure that we're not only supporting our teachers with a great and wonderful curriculum and wonderful PD, but what do we need to do to make sure that we're helping teachers manage their self-care? So the self-care piece is more like social and emotional learning for teachers and adults. So really excited about it. You guys have the dates. We would love to have you there. We call this series Thrive because you guys heard Dr. Knos over the years say that we do whatever it takes to ensure that all students thrive. And I remember when I first heard Dr. Knos say that, I sent him a text message and said, "What's your definition of thrive?" And he said, "Well, what's your definition of thrive?" And I was like, I don't know. So, this is my definition of thrive. Just really quickly want to highlight a few programs. We have Second Step in our elementary as well as one middle school, Rockwood Valley. Second Step is a research evidence-based program that really help kids work on social and emotional learning. Emote is a program that we are taking a look at Rockwood Valley. At Rockwood South. It's a program that kids can go and set emotional goals, and teachers can take a look at that and support students along the way. But they can also report that they're having a crisis, and the teacher can take a look at their roster and see that certain kids are struggling. So we only have that at one school right now, and it's working well. A big focus this year on character education at the secondary level. So when we talk to Character Plus, they're really pushing Rockwood School District to have some of our secondary schools apply for national and state character school districts because they feel like we have things in place that we can share. And I'm really excited because we do have a few schools who are interested in going through that process. Our elementary schools have done that, and we're really doing well. So secondary is going to take a page from the elementary book. New student survey, we're just working on a survey for students to ask questions about what do we need to do to make your filling experience better. So what is it that student services need to put in place to make sure that the climate is good and you're okay. So that's just a survey that we're going to work on. I'm really excited about the fact that we expanded our student restore programs. Dr. Counts talked about this last year, that we had created restore programs in a few of our schools. We expanded to Eureka this year, which means now we have student restore programs at all 4 of our high schools, as well as the ILC. Student restore program is somewhat of a area where kids can go to and kind of work on social and emotional learning skills. They can take a break. This is like our school within the school system. Same thing we have at the middle school level, and
Some of the bullet points didn't show up.
and she just made me nervous. No, just joking. That's fine. But so the student restore program is at Eureka High School, so we have it at all 4 schools. And then at middle school, we're doing a very similar program for helping students meet their social and emotional needs as well. Any questions?
Go over your time limit or something?
I'm sorry?
I was trying to
There are
help
3 more
There were
bullets that aren't showing up there.
Some bullets that didn't show up on
Oh.
the screen, so I was helping.
And
Terry,
yeah, that's fine.
Terry, a question on this. You have 4 programs going. When did you start these programs? Or are they new to Rockwood?
The Thrive series?
Social and emotional, trauma, restorative, and self-care.
Yeah, so we started those programs, probably the first event was September sometime. So the dates that you see are, we
You just started
updated
these
this.
programs now in mass.
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
but some of the pieces were going on last year,
Okay.
but the series started in September.
Go back on.
Systematic now and lined out.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you go back to the slides, to Dr. Cobb's slide, you were on that too. Is that another thing you're in there?
It's the same thing. So so the way that we're looking at the Thrive SEL piece is part of RTI.
Sure.
And so Dave heads the RTI, but we're all connected. Dr. Counts, Dave, curriculum, we're same work. We're a team.
It is very interesting. The four you mentioned, I mean, they are the hot topic
Yeah.
in the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
I see it in my students.
Yeah.
That's all they want to talk about.
Yeah. And I would tell you that there are a lot of school districts who are looking at the work that we're doing. We invite other school districts to come and take a look at some of the work that we're doing. And we've had at every last one of these events, school districts, 1 or 2 people there just taking a look at what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do you feel like our teachers are, I'm going back to the teachers, but do you feel like they're receiving a lot of support on how to identify kids who are really struggling because, or just minorly struggling, right? Because, you know, I even think about my own classes when I teach, there are kids that tell me, hey, I have something going on in my life, but then there are kids who are sitting there obviously upset about something. Do you think our teachers are really doing a much better job trying to identify those kids, to help kids?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that now teachers have language. And so when, you know, sometimes you see something that's going on and you just don't know and you don't have language to it. Now teachers have language and they can share with the social worker or share with the counselor exactly what they're seeing. What we're really focusing on with the teacher is helping them be able to identify and name what they're seeing, and then we can have the appropriate people take over from there. So teachers have language now and they're aware of some of these different things. So yes, I think they feel supported.
So I just want to make one comment. One of the things I really liked that in the CSIP plan that you looked at, and that is supporting teachers to identify students who can do more, and those challenging, because we and not to neglect any of our struggling students, but the goal is to set high standards and get all of our kids there. And I really appreciate you recognizing the staff need help doing that. So that was an important part for
Well,
me.
and I can't really take credit for that, but thank you. There's a lot of people that have a role in that, and we've noticed that the more that we challenge students, even students that we may think traditionally maybe wouldn't be a student to enroll in that coursework, or even at our lower grades with challenge classes at the middle school, and how we accelerate students in the elementary. The curriculum department, they've really been instrumental in that, and I think that's really, and our principals are really instrumental too. They're really seeing kids that they want to push a little bit, and we're really seeing kids rise to the challenge, and which ties right back into the beauty I think about our school improvement plan, our district CSIP, is there's no standalones. Like really every bit of this, you know, finance, human resources, curriculum, we're all talking about the same things. We're all working towards the same goals. And so, you know, we laugh about, well, I thought Terry was coming up for the RTI slide because it goes right, his work goes hand in hand with the work that's happening in RTI. So we're really seeing that by challenging students, we're also getting at a lot of these social and emotional areas that we know are so important, that when kids feel valued, when kids feel proud of their work, that goes right into how they present themselves in the classroom. And when they feel like they're successful, it boosts their self-esteem, and they treat others better, and they treat themselves better. And so it's just kind of a circle that continues to help kids succeed when all of those pieces work together.
Caroline Tomlinson's done a lot of research on if we set our standards for the highest kids and move all of our kids toward those goals with support, and that includes the support for the teachers, that you improve everybody's potential.
Right.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I know, are you?
Oh, sorry, do you want to go back to that one?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to comment on strategic focus area number 5.
Governance.
Governance. That maybe we need to work.
Well, I didn't report on that because that's not really my domain. All right, that's a board.
Right.
Typically, you know, obviously that goal exists because that's the work that the board does, governs the school district, and typically in the past, that's how this district has always covered that, just through the work that you do and the collaborative work that we do together too with me as superintendent. So we can always take a look if there's a different way to approach that the board is interested in.
So let's have that conversation at another time. I just was
Yeah,
popped
so,
into my
yeah,
head,
it wasn't that we ignored
I know.
it. It was more
No,
about that
it's-
the steps that probably need to be added there
Right,
are done
so
through
I-
your discussions.
I think we need to be aware of that and to contribute.
Sure, sure. So just some of the bullets, I apologize, the last few things on this slide aren't coming up on the screen for some reason, but I just wanted to touch on, and you guys are aware of this, but just they fall right in line with our focus work in school improvement is our work around innovative practices that are happening K through 12, and we're just really seeing that's just a mind shift really for teachers and students, but we're really seeing a growth in teachers' comfort level, teachers taking risks with learning and new strategies, students taking risks. Several of us participated in an event today at Selvage Middle School where they're really looking at design thinking throughout the whole school and students coming up with a challenge or a problem that they want to solve and engaging experts to help them solve that problem. So we're just seeing a whole, and that's just one example. There's examples in every single one of our schools where, again, innovation isn't something that was dictated to anyone. It's not an initiative. It's not a program, but it really ties back to that social and emotional learning that when kids are engaged in things that are relevant and meaningful to them, they rise so much more to the challenge because it really gets at what's important to them. And so we're seeing more and more of that. And we're seeing that with our teachers too. Many times when I'm in schools, I'll have principals say to me, they'll really see some teachers that are re-energized and kind of have a breath of fresh air with trying some new things and maybe giving that permission to really look at things in a more innovative way. So we're excited about that work, and that ties directly to probably all of these areas of our school improvement plan is that we really are seeing some shifts in mindset with innovative practices. And then the other piece that I added on this slide, which you guys have heard a lot about, is the middle school and high school program reviews, and those are still in full swing. And in fact, I think later this month or in December, I'm giving a high school program update for you, but those are definitely parts of our school improvement process as well. And then there are questions of anything that
This
we
was
covered.
really interesting because I can remember 4 years ago, Katie sort of ran that one. And it's interesting to see the growth in the things you're working towards now as compared to 4 years ago where we solved a lot of those situations. It made me stop and think. There are a lot of universities all over. They always seem not being able to make a decision, so they never get anywhere. And they're always the last ones to do anything. And I know there are some universities around now that are working on all four of these things that Terry's talking about. Instead of the old style, well, I'm going to teach you how to do discipline, how to give out detentions and things like that. They're actually working with this so teachers can recognize that. That's the whole key to the thing. You train the teachers and it'll take care of a lot of those situations. So I commend the Rockwood School District for doing that. Thank you.
Lisa, just to make sure I have this right, so you'll do the work to go into the next 5-year cycle in 18-19.
Correct. Yeah,
And
so
you'll
we will
implement
start
in
the
19-20.
review process next year
Right.
to implement for 1920.
And so this plan started in 14-15.
Correct.
Yeah, some final thoughts from me. First, thanks to Lisa and the whole team. Every 2 weeks, we all get together. This entire team that you saw, we call it the admin leadership team. I kind of got rid of the name cabinet, even though there's things in policy that we still refer to as cabinet, but the admin leadership team. And our meetings are really simple. We go around the room and everybody updates the whole team on the pieces that they're working on. And the reason the CSIP is so relevant, I love what Keith said about that, because I've been in other districts where CSIP is a formality, and it becomes a formality, and then it doesn't breathe. It's put on the shelf. 5 years later, you go through the process again. Ours is constantly staying relevant to what we're working on, and sometimes it drives us, and sometimes we drive it based upon so many different things that are just in our daily practices, from conversations we have, from school visits, from meetings with various people. It just all feeds into how that process lives and breathes, and it's very relevant work, and we see that every 2 weeks when we, sometimes in a lengthy way, go around the room and talk about the various things that we're doing. But I always tell the group to stop and think about what, as leaders of the district, we just heard and what we talked about, and this is the work we do that's relevant every day. And so the CSIP, it does remain a very relevant thing. So thank you all for your leadership and your work.
Great presentation, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Normandy Schools Collaborative Memorandum of Understanding. I need a motion to approve the Normandy Schools Collaborative MOU as presented.
So move.
A motion and a second?
Second.
Anything? And I think Dr. Knost is going to tell us about this.
Yes. So just to give a little history, just to bring the conversation front and center, you probably all recall back in about the 2013 area in the state of Missouri, we had a few school districts that went unaccredited. St. Louis Public had been unaccredited for a while, and basically somebody noticed that there was a piece of legislation where it allowed, that was already in place, that allowed, when schools were unaccredited, students of those schools had the opportunity to attend any school in that county or adjacent county, and the school district itself that was unaccredited had to name another district to actually provide transportation to send kids to. So you may recall that Riverview Gardens went unaccredited, and they picked the Melville School District and the Kirkwood School District where they transported kids to. And Normandy at the time, the Normandy School District, picked the Francis Howell District, and they were transporting students. So a lot of that was that little piece in statute that caused that to happen. It really wasn't the initial intent, but there were a lot of legal cases that came about and a lot of lawsuits that were kind of sorted through. But the effort in the St. Louis area was to make sure that we kept kids as the main focus. So as things have progressed, the good news is you now have Riverview Gardens that are currently provisionally accredited. We have St. Louis City Schools, which are fully accredited, and that leaves the Normandy School District, which is now called the Normandy Schools Collaborative. It still has oversight by a state board, but they have had great improvements, and there is a very good possibility that in January, DESE will grant them their initial accreditation. I'm sorry, I just said the word, the provisional, thank you. And so when that happens, there's a big question of what happens to students that are out in the schools. And we currently, it's not a huge deal for us, we have 2 Normandy students that choose to attend. They are elementary students, and they are siblings. Pardon me? Yes, they are twins, yes. And so we still have to think about those kids. As local superintendents, we actually had a meeting with DESE and with the superintendent from the Normandy Schools Collaborative, and of course we're pulling for DESE to get that provisional certification. They're doing great work, and just some really good things are happening there. DESE has said in no uncertain terms that they're very interested in knowing how schools are going to handle these kids and their transitions, because it could actually, they care so much about these kids, and I really appreciate this, that it will influence their decision. So what was sent out to you in the work, the MOU, is basically something that says this. They don't want the rug yanked out from under kids who are currently in a district, and it basically says this: by us agreeing this MOU, that these kids who are elementary kiddos, we allow them to stay in our program if they desire. Of course, we don't provide their transportation. Their parents provide their own transportation. We allow them to stay in the program. We grandfather them until their natural transition, which for them would be 5th grade. So at that point in time, then they would return, if there's still accreditation, they would return to the Normandy School District in 5th grade. The other thing is that part of that provision, of course, Normandy by law pays a certain amount of tuition for those kids to attend our school. So the other part of the MOU is that we just grandfather those 2 kids to stay here until 5th grade if they desire, and that we grandfather Normandy for paying us at that $7,000 rate per those kids. And it's the right thing to do. If this were a very, very large number of kids, we would still need to discuss this and think about what's good for those kids. But I really, as I presented to you all when we sent you this MOU, it's in my opinion a no-brainer. It's what we should do for these kids. And again, it also in turn helps Normandy with their potential provisional accreditation, because the state wants to make sure that these kids and their transitions are being taken care of. Oh, no,
It's
no.
going to affect a number of students, just not a
Right,
number in our district.
right. We're probably, I don't know of any other school district that only has 2. There's plenty that have none, but there's a good handful, especially in the immediate area. And of course, the Francis House School District still has quite a few kids, because initially that was the transportation district that Normandy was sending students to. I think initially they had 400. You remember, Terry, if that's right? I think it was around 400, and I think that's maybe been, it's still a pretty significant number, but I think it's probably 100 and something, 150, 175. I think Parkway has about 35, and there's kind of, yes.
Just happened to be in Normandy last week, and I sat down with the brand new assistant superintendent, talented lady, and we were talking about another subject, and it got off on this situation. She knew that Rockwood only had 2 students, and I knew that. But she was talking about all these other districts. They have a lot of options. The $7,150 is playing into a lot of, that's what Normandy would pay, but a lot of these districts are charging a lot more. So she's worried, and I think Normandy is worried that they're just going to opt out completely, and just all kinds of things. So they're really worried. They're hopeful about the provisional accreditation, but they're really worried about the transportation. I thought she said something like 4,000 kids had left. Maybe not that many.
I think initially,
So
How big is the district?
it's only about 6,000, I think. No, it's more, 8,000 maybe.
yeah, it's closer to 10. It's up in the,
It seems in our case anyway, the right thing to do is also a very easy thing to do. Can't speak for other districts. Hopefully they'll also do the right thing, quote unquote, but for us it's 2 people, and the $7,000 does not equal what we spend per student, but it certainly does cover the provisional cost of adding 2 students. So in my mind anyway, this is a simple, easy thing. It's the right thing to do. It's an easy thing to do.
maybe appropriate to mention also that the way you just said that, Matt, is exactly correct, and we it's really a grandfathering situation, which is consistent with what we've done with other tuition paying situations. Students who have been in the system, you all have been grandfathering, even though we really haven't been accepting new. So these are grandfathered students at a tuition rate that was previously set, and you're really just grandfathering them.
Grades are the twins in now?
I think the 1st grade, aren't they, Terry? Yeah.
It's been another 4 years.
What's with all the twins? In the water?
They don't go to Stanton.
Are they
though.
Stanton? Okay. There you go. They'd be happy there. All right. Any other discussion on the MOU for Normandy schools? In that case, the motion is to approve the MOU. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That carries. Thank you very much. The next item is a bond issue purchases, and I don't see Mr. Friend, but I see Mike Snyder. Are you going to join us? There you go. Need a motion to approve the bond issue purchases and related contracts between $7,500 and $150,000 as submitted.
Move.
A motion and a second, and I think it's just the one, isn't it?
Expense for subsurface private utility mapping, which is recommended due to the multiple additions that have been previously constructed at this facility. This information will assist in reducing the potential cost of encountering unforeseen private utility conflicts during construction.
It's only a Gaggy? It is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The elementary is a great school. Both my kids went there, but it's been added on to so many times that there's just no telling where everything is. So you just have to do this.
We'll maximize our chances for
it's-
finding everything and then dealing with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
It's
Because-
easy to spend this hitting a couple of pipes underground. so.
yeah. Find everything before you dig.
Yep.
How many kids will that addition at Gagey hold, or is it just spreading them out some?
A classroom, but there are 6, 7 classrooms.
I think it's 6 classrooms with an alternate bid, so we can possibly get the 7th. And obviously we've been trying to drive our elementary numbers down. Our primary grades around that 20 mark, and the upper grades around that 23 mark. So it does open up room for quite a few more students in that building. Relative to, we factored that all in with the last bond issue, considering the 2 new big subdivisions that we have in Eureka. That, along with the bigger Eureka Elementary School, and pulling our early childhood programs into the current Eureka Elementary, gives us the room we need.
Early childhood, they're currently in buildings in the Eureka quadrant, right?
They're in Eureka Elementary and in Blevins, not in Gagey.
So they'll come out and go into the early childhood, which will give you some rooms at Blevins, which they need. Okay.
Discussion on the bond issue? Motion is to approve the bond issue purchases. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That carries. Thank you very much. I have a couple more items here. The Communications Outreach Public Engagement Committee, COPE. Directors Bays, Kinder, and Miller are on that. So do you have somebody have a particular report, or?
I'll start the update, and then I'm going to defer to Kathy Order for a little bit. So we met on Monday and got together and talked about several items. The first item we talked about is the Board of Education communication channels. And so Kathy's going to fill us in on some of those statistics.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we during COPE we look at the measurement of our communication channels. We kind of want to know how our community is responding to the ways that we're communicating with them. So the very first one up there is statistics in our first quarter. So of course we have our school board website. We have about almost 41,000 page views on that website. Of course, a lot of them are looking at policy and regulations. So when we take that number out, that drives about 7,000 page views, looking at your meeting, looking at the different communication channels, your board profiles, what's available on that site. Then we also have unique visitors, and these are the it's really each device looking at that site. So we know that we had about 7,600 visitors on the site. And again, if we take out policies, that puts us at about 1,500 visitors who are looking at your school board website. We also have YouTube meetings, and that we had 256 page views, or people viewing, throughout that first quarter, which began on August 1. And that averages out to about 37 views, people who are either watching the full board meeting or maybe just the portion they're most interested in on your YouTube playlist that's for our Board of Education. We also send out something called Board Focus. That is your Board of Education e-newsletter. So since August, you've had 13,500 people viewing your e-newsletter, and that's about an average open rate about 2,000 per e-newsletter. And then we also have an icon on the mobile app, the Rockwood mobile app, for our Board of Education, and there's about 485 followers who are opening that icon and reading your information and viewing that website and the information that is available on their smartphone. So that's an overview of the communication reach, and it seems like people are interested in seeing the good work of our school board.
Thanks, Kathy. The other things we talked about were the usual topic of board involvement in schools and community, and they'll continue to update us with the, it's about a quarterly update with the printout. And then there's lots of smaller updates like today's Veterans Day school events spreadsheet, which is very helpful with a big topic like that that hits all of our schools, so we can spread out and figure out where we're going to be able to go over those few days. We also talked about, if you don't know, the Rockwood calendar. If you look at it either through your smartphone or your computer, you can go through interactively and look at all the events by school. So if you know some week you're going to be in the Lafayette quadrant and you wanted to see what's going on in those schools, you could select those schools and it would highlight them right up on the calendar, which is very helpful. So maybe check that out if you're doing some planning. We also talked about professional development for the board, and we talked about specifically our board retreat, which we have sort of just added on to meetings the last few years. But one of the things we talked about potentially doing is after the election in April, we will kind of discuss that as a new board at that time and come up with the plan that's maybe going to be the best for the majority of people. So whether that looks like a survey or just a discussion, but something to drive sort of how that retreat item will look for all of us. And then we talked about also having our legislative update in April as well, which is always really informative and helpful. Then lastly, we talked about just ideas of things. We always like to brainstorm things either to bring to our board meetings to sort of look at what's going on in the schools right in front of us. And some of those hot topics that we've seen lately, either in media or wherever, is like the geometry and construction classes. We could have some of those kids come in and show us their models. We've had our robotics teams in here before, the biodiesel, character ed update, lots of different things with the one-to-one technology. We also talked about the new innovative centers that are starting to be built in the elementary schools. So I don't know if you all saw that piece, but it was awesome on KSDK. And just looking at some of those things that the kids were using, we could easily have those right in here for all of us to sort of explore together. And that's about it. So, if you all have any ideas of things that you'd like to see come live in front of us, Dr. Kinder?
About the live streaming, didn't we talk about that?
We
Did
did.
we decide not to talk about it tonight, and I missed it?
No. Do you want me to update that part, or do you want to?
Been live streaming board meetings. However, there's something called Section 508 for web accessibility, and when we live stream, we're not able to close caption board meetings. And beginning at the end of January, there's a new law, Section 508 is part of ADA, that requires closed captioning for, just be helpful for people to go ahead and be able to read those who are having, concerns with either visually or hearing the board meetings. So because of this new law, the COPE members decided to stop the live streaming and to return to uploading the board meeting on Friday morning, put it directly on YouTube so people will have that web accessibility as far as closed captioning to view. We think it's the right thing to offer to all of our community.
We also, when we were talking about it, very few people were doing the live streaming. That was another, many more were doing it YouTube.
Exactly, that is true. We were looking at some of the numbers of those who had been viewing the board meetings with closed captioning was actually sometimes 3 times as higher versus viewership for live streaming. So we believed it's something our community wanted to see.
So we'll meet again in January and we'll bring you another update, but if you all have anything, just shoot us an email.
Any questions?
But I like that, what happened? I just left. The A+ program, I don't think we talk about that nearly as much as we should, because I hear so many kids now that come back after going away to school, end up going to a community college, my own son included, and you know, the opportunity there to have those free 2 years of, did I say that right? Free
Yes.
2 years of college education is, I mean, that's a pretty great opportunity for our kids. I just don't think we talk about that very often.
The other thing that would be nice to hear about is CCL and what's happening there and the gifted program with Joan Oakley, and kind of an update would be something interesting.
I think we have enough ideas when we start talking. We sit down and talk. We have enough ideas that we could maybe have 2 presentations, a board meeting, short presentations, or something along that line. I think we need more of that, not for us, I mean, for us, but also for the audience, that, you know, the community. Invite some of those.
There you go.
The discussion? All right. Almost at the end here. The proposed agenda for the November 16th meeting is probably magically about to appear. There are a few things on there. A couple bond issue items, whether it's above and below the $150,000. The curriculum, yearbook, and journalism first reading, and the high school program design review. There may be some other things that come up in the next week or so. As always, you've got about another week if there's anything that you would like to see on there. I would.
Forget, it's awards night at Lafayette, isn't it?
What's that?
Isn't that awards night at Lafayette?
Oh, is it? Oh, good. Thank you. Yes.
Who's up? Do we know who's up?
Who's going to be handing out awards?
It's a surprise.
To present?
Huh?
To present, you mean?
Yes.
I have Keith and Matt down
Okay.
for next week, for the next meeting, or it can be,
No, that's
Anybody-
fine.
I just
Anybody-
kind of went in the same order as
Dr.
last
Skinner
year,
knows
so.
when to wear he has to wear a suit.
I know.
Yes.
Just have
I
to
was
give
going
him
to
a
send a
heads up.
separate email, so everybody
You can
was
stay on the normal
prepared.
rotation unless there's somebody that particularly, like if it's at Eureka, I know more people there, and I would be more inclined to want to do that. So if anybody wants to be the one at Lafayette, they could do that.
Anybody? You want to be next week, or next meeting at Lafayette? You will? You won't? Okay.
Do whatever.
Lynn's right out.
Okay,
I was just doing it primarily for him, that he has to wear a suit. He needs
So,
advance notification. He wants to clean his shirt.
Okay.
okay.
His tie, right?
I'll yeah. And reminder that the meeting starts at 5:30 too, at
5:30?
Lafayette, 5:30. The closed session starts.
As that gets closer, could we send out a reminder email?
Oh, yeah.
that,
That'll be a reminder.
And then it's at Lafayette.
and that it's at
Yes.
Lafayette. All right, the only thing left then is future agenda presentations. As Jamie pointed out, there's a whole list of the Labor Day events that are in front of everybody here.
Veterans
Labor Day.
Day.
Good gosh. Veterans Day.
And if anybody wants to let me know that you're going to be at a school, if you're not letting them know ahead of time, and we don't have to, but we were just trying to keep a little bit of track of what schools are getting.
So we need to,
hit. Yeah, and I was going to send that out by email tomorrow too, that chart. But there's a lot going on, and so we were trying to make sure all the schools were going to get some kind of coverage. So
All right, well, that brings us to the end. Is there anything else anybody would like to bring up? All right, one quick thing just because it's fun. I found out a couple of days ago that the Center for Creative Learning, CCL, is coming to Alberici, where I currently work. That is a platinum LEED building, which was I think it was the 9th in the United States. They're coming up to see all the things that are done. There's a windmill, there's solar panels, there's all this high efficiency surfaces and everything else. When I found out that they are coming to Alberici, I went over there and quickly volunteered to help with the presentation and get to see them, and maybe even a photo op. So I was pretty excited about it, and I thought I'd let everybody else know about it. So with that, we will adjourn.
It's cool.
Good night.
People clapping? Oh, okay. Huh?
You're so much fun.
I know, aren't they? Yeah, people actually like each other.
Yeah.
Except not
Like,
when
we
they're
have
avoiding.
summer break or something.